Welcome back, everyone. It's Thomas Watson, trucking expert here at FreightWaves. It is day 2 of the Future of Supply Chain event here in Atlanta, Georgia. Day 2 for loaded and rolling as well. We're saving the best for last. First guest, Brent Hutto, Chief, first and only guest.
Well, you're too kind. Well, you're the best if you're the only. That's right.
We'll do the whole. Tell us your name and position and title.
Sure. Brent Hutto. I've been in the market about 27 years, and I'm the Chief Relationship Officer for Truckstop.com. And I've been around Truckstop for 11 years, and it's been my favorite part of my career, Tom, is being inside of logistics for freight moves, because I spent previous 15 years working with a media company, Overdrive Magazine, which kind of where I cut my teeth a little bit on knowing the owner-operator. But when I got into logistics, man, it really fired me up, because this is where the industry makes money. This is where people are fired up about their business. And so I really appreciate being a part of what's going on inside of logistics.
And last time I got to talk to you, market conditions, it's been a minute.
Yeah.
What's kind of changed? 6 months, a year ago? What have you seen since last time?
That's the big question, right, John? Everyone wants to know, when's it going to change? When's it going to inflect back? And I think the thing to keep in mind is that we went through something that that the market had never increased to this amount ever in the history since deregulation, when it became an open marketplace. So to think that it's going to go back to anything like that is kind of a fool's gold thing. It's not going to, because it's not designed to, because the consumer purchasing of goods is usually 40% of all their spending, not 60% of all their spending, which made the big, great market. So what's changed is not much. And so that's what everybody keeps asking me is, well, what's changed? Well, nothing's changed since the market came back to normal in October of 2022. And we've been kind of at a normal market since then. So we've had 20 months of a normalized market. So not much changed.
And I think there's an interesting thing. I was on a webinar with Ken Adamo, not Ken Adamo, it was the other DAT gentleman, Dean Croak.
Oh, Dean's good. That's a good guy.
Dean had a really cool comment. I want to get your thoughts, because you're connected to the owner-operator community as well.
Very much.
He had said that something he had seen was a new tech breed of owner-operators. You got the guys who pay off their trucks. They work like 8 months out of the year. They take 4 off.
Right.
But that they exist in the market, and they're able to be more fluid than years prior, because there's more tech and resources available letting them make decisions. That's something you've kind of seen as well.
Oh, well, sure, without a doubt. I mean, when we came in the market in 95, we opened up basically the total access for a very small trucking company, a one-truck owner-operator, to have access to the data in the market, Tom. I mean, think about it. Before 1995, in the intranet, the old internets, as my dad used to say, access to data and the information, unless you were a very organized company, you didn't have it. So the owner-operator used to have to go to a truck stop and look at a TV and then make a phone call. Well, they don't have to do that now. There's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of loads every day at their fingertips, available for a very modest price that is on subscription into our product or other products in the marketplace. And so what changed about it is they now have optionality. Yep. They can choose, and let's just say they don't want to be a flatbedder anymore. But even though the flatbed market's been great for most, historically the spot market was flatbed related, because it was better pay and refrigerated as well. And that's in total market access now, because of the way in which transparency is in the marketplace on the data side for a little small operation that can now honestly have the same point of view as a very large multi-million-dollar operation.
That's
So are they tech? They wouldn't say they are. They just say, I'm using what's at my fingertips.
I've got more available at my fingertips.
For sure. Don't we all? We all have a computer in our pocket that could put us on the moon, right? Called a smartphone. So it's the same thing. It's just how you choose to use it. And the smart owner-operators really know how to go in and look at the data every day, know the marketplaces and the seasons that they're looking in, and they're able to sustain their business. This is why even though we've been in a down market for a while now, while you haven't seen a lot of exits in those 1 and 2 truck owner-operators, it's because they have access to the data in the marketplace, and they can survive, and they can take off. Like you pointed out, some of them only run 8 months a year.
I do have to ask, because I can't remember what they're called. What were the screens called? Before the DAT folks, it was a certain screen company that they had, and they did the screens in the truck stops.
I should know this.
Yeah.
I don't know this, man. Obviously, I know DAT's given name, Dial-A-Truck, but I can't remember the name. You're talking about the monitors.
The monitors.
Yeah, I don't know.
We gotta find that out. Where's the guys in the back? We need somebody to look it up real quick.
We need somebody in our ear telling us what it is.
IFB.
That's right. But it's gotten, the thing to me, and this is why the spot market has expanded so much, Tom, over the last 25 plus years. It's because more and more access to data and information has been available to the smallest of players. And it's not just carriers. It's not just trucking companies. You can be a one agent working at your, off your couch or in your kitchen and run a really successful business, and because you have the ability to be able to access the market anywhere. So that's that's been the revolutionary change, and that's what's sustained it, and that's what continues to grow it. I'll give you a percentage. This is kind of cool.
Oh yeah.
1996, it was about 5% of all of the freight in the United States that was run in the spot market. Today, it's plus 30%.
Oh, wow.
We're talking about $1 trillion industry. So it's plus 30%, and it shows you what technology and the access to data does to grow a marketplace. So it's an amazing thing that's going on. It's really fun to be in it.
And I think truck stop being a load board,
Right.
you get access to what the broker behavior and driver behavior is
sure.
doing.
Yeah.
One thing that was interesting, I was overhearing in one of the debates, was that despite the fact that brokerages are gaining a larger share of the contract, they frequently still need to get onto the spot market for that discovery, utilizing load boards for covering and missed coverage and stuff. Is that something you see as well, as that as we saw the owner-operators move into the market,
Right.
were the accounts of the brokerages also ballooning? Or was it, I wonder if that's one of the data, or if more of the brokerages got bigger fat slices of the pie that had the technology versus a small mom and pop where you got to mail your stuff in?
Well, I think it's kind of both. The ultimate customer, the shipper, kind of dictates what's going to happen. So shippers, prior to the pandemic, were really pushing back on their broker customers to say, I want some automation. I want to have more control at my fingertips as the shipper, the manufacturer, to see where my goods are and what's going on with them. And so there's sort of a little bit more automation. So if you were a big player in the market and you had technology and you could connect that way, then you're going to gain some share in freight. And the shipper is, as you experience anything in life, you become more comfortable with it. One of my great stories is how did Alex Honnold climb El Capitan? Well, he's like, I just got comfortable in climbing a mountain without a rope. So getting comfortable with it as you experience something is really important. So the same thing with shippers in this marketplace, where they started to experience, I get good results from brokers. I get great results from my carriers too, but the broker can give me good results too because they have dependable capacity. And so what happens is it's not just the exception freight, the hard to move, the excess, the stuff that's in excess. It's now, well, I think I'm going to give them 10% of my contract freight because I can get comfortable with it. And then, Tom, we went into this period called the pandemic, where it was just find me a truck. I don't care how you move it. Move it in the spot market, move it through contract carriers dedicated. I don't care. Get somebody from Uber to come move my freight. It doesn't matter. I need to get my freight moved. And so it was a really bad spot for shippers in the marketplace. But they experienced brokers more and more, and they experienced the spot market carrier, that 1 truck, 2 truck, 5 truck carrier that's in the marketplace. That's a dominant part. There's a lot of medium-sized ones in there too, but when shippers experienced that, they said, well, this is pretty dependable. So I've been doing a lot of ad hoc polling with shippers over the last year and a half, asking them, hey, are you comfortable in moving your contract freight inside the spot market through a brokerage? Like, absolutely. I'm like 90% say yes to it. So the marketplace just changed as far as from the comfort, but it's because it's dependable. That's why. It's not because it's like a sort of desperate need or anything. It's dependable, and shippers want dependable and consistent.
That was, and I'm curious about the polling. You guys partnered with Bloomberg Intelligence, driver sentiment.
Yeah.
One day Bloomberg may talk to me if I'm cool enough. Waiting on it.
Happy to help you out with
Bloomberg, if you're out there, call me.
Cal's a great guy. He'd be happy to talk to you at FreightWaves. I know he has great respect for you guys.
Well, tell us about some of this sentiment data, because I think it's important. I have a theory. This is my preface here. I'm loading the question up. This is that the situation has been really good now for capacity because it's loose. A broker can get that share of the contract market, but at the same time, you're locking it in a year. Carriers have more data now. When spot rates climb up, that load may no longer be attractive. Is it fragile? Is the sentiment to a point where shippers are more like, I'm going to trust you on the next upswing? Or is it more like, I'm gonna continue to go ride or die with a broker, similar to like an asset-based carrier?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. The first off, the survey itself is something we've been doing with Bloomberg for 15 years. And so we've been tracking sentiment for 15 years with them quarter over quarter. So we got a really good trend marker, a benchmark line against that. And we don't just track carriers, we track brokers as well. So it's 2 different reports, but the carrier one came out, and we really wanted to understand carriers because they're kind of suffering right now, especially the small market carrier when it relates to pricing. We don't have a freight availability recession. We have a pricing recession in the marketplace, and contract carriers are experiencing it right now. It's kind of back to just balance, and the spot market's about 30% below what the average trend should be in the market for spot market pricing. But when you look at this, so we want to ask sentiment all the time of these carriers, because we don't need small carriers leaving the market, in a sense. And maybe there's some people that say, some need to move out because there's too many. Then that's a possibility, and some have.
Yeah.
But in a sense, you really want, the broker wants the greatest availability of capacity, because that's what helps them run their business. So we asked them the question. I think we got 225 responses, and about 45% of them were one truck owner operators. And we like to ask the sentiment of a one truck owner operator. And overall, they just felt like they were more positive than they were negative about the market. They were like encouraged about the market. Now, that you got to dig a little further into that, because we always dig a little further. 62% did say that, there's a lot less freight available this quarter than last quarter. Well, but that percentage. I would answer that with, it depends.
Yeah.
It depends on what segment you're in, because there's really great freight all over the United States for owner operators. It just depends on where that they look. But we've been tracking and trending this to look at sentiment, because we just want to know, are they going to exit the market? There's about, I think the number was 9% said, oh no, we're thinking about exiting the market. Well, it was about 6 to 9% when they said, I'm leaving the market with ELDs. I think it was like 1% left for ELDs.
Oh, wow.
So they love trucking. They want to be in trucking. They love it because it's who they are. It's not what they do. And it's their life of what they do. So we don't fundamentally see a lot of change. So we've seen some exits from the for-hire side, Tom, go from the for-hire part of the business, or a truck stop customer, back to a leased owner operator. But we've seen very few total exits in the market from a capacity standpoint.
That's the hardest thing to find, because we hear about it, we know about it. I worked at a mega carrier, LP, lease purchase, owner ops would come in and out.
Sure, it's a great entry point for them.
It is. It's just so hard to find. Have you ever found? I haven't found anything yet, because I'm not like, I wish I had like a WhatsApp with 300,000 MCs and say, hey, who's thinking about it? And I could poll that. But is that one of the challenges? Because people love to ask that question. Is capacity moving or not? I look at FMCSA net revocation data, but it's almost like you're a detective. What are some of your thoughts? Because it's like a big thing to try and digest, because there's not a clear answer.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those things where, and I get asked this question all the time from the Wall Street guys, or as my buddy used to say, the muckety mucks, all the guys that ask it all the data questions. And it just depends on what you look at from the standpoint of entries and exits in the market. What happens is that most people outside the marketplace, Tom, don't know this. You know this because you just mentioned it. Leased owner operators. That's how a company driver, typically this is the pattern. A company driver who has aspirations will be a company driver for about 7 years, and then they'll become a leased owner operator for a couple years, and then about 1% of all the truck drivers in the United States become an independent owner operator. They get their authority to run in the open and choose their own freight. So, but the reason that I say it's hard to track is because, number one, you don't have really great empirical data. The FMCSA does a pretty good job with keeping up with it, but the entries and exits are pretty lagged, and they can exit the market and it doesn't show up for 9 or 10 months. Because they just go back to being a leased owner operator working for a fleet, or if they have a total failure, a financial failure, they can just become a company driver. So do trucks leave the market? Well, if you look at the data, it hadn't changed much in my 27 years in the market. It's actually increased a little bit on the for-hire end, but the overall marketplace hasn't changed a tremendous amount. So it's one of those things where if you just look at the for-hire marketplace, it has gone down, absolutely, because it should. Because you have to have operational ratio efficiency in that, and not everybody does, and especially owner-operators. They struggle a lot with that. But they haven't left the market because they love trucking, so they just go become a leased owner-operator. And there's not really great data on it. We do a lot of research into that, but it's not necessarily available data when it comes to looking at that. Yeah.
Got a for-hire space is fascinating because I've been reading around ACT and a few others talking about private fleets, which also feels like a very nebulous concept. But you forget Walmart has like 11,000 tractors. One of the largest. If Walmart was a for-hire fleet, just to move its own stuff, it would be one of the top 10 in the entire country. And Walmart still uses other carriers in the for-hire segment. Is that something Truck Stop, when you're looking at it, do you ever see that instance, like Walmart ever post a truck up, or
Well, we have, I don't know the exact percentage, but it's a significant percentage of our users are what we call combo accounts. They have a brokerage, and they also are a carrier. So, and I'll give you a percentage. Fully 50% of the active brokerage companies that use Truck Stop, and I'm sure it's against all the other competitors as well in the marketplace from a load board standpoint, are brokerage arms of asset-based carriers. So it's the Schneider's brokerage arm, it's Knight Swift's brokerage arm, it's all the brokerage arms, because brokerage has become a legitimate way to move freight for a carrier who routinely books 120, 130% of their capacity because they know they can move it through their brokerage, and it's become very profitable. You think about it, if you're looking at cost, it goes back and forth on both sides. If contract rates are depressed and the spot market's up, you have a brokerage you can move it through that has capacity to be able to move it. So, so your question about that was focused on.
Is there a way to see? Because I'm hearing that they're poaching in a private fleet if they don't have enough.
Fleet,
Are they going to poach into the spot market? Because that's one of the big theories is some have argued that there is a lingering weight of not only the for-hire carriers, like on earnings calls, publicly traded, they're like, I'm going to reduce contract. But then you have the private fleet. So you have this weight that's just entering.
Right. A private fleet meaning a manufacturer who has their own trucks, right? So it's a shipper who has their own trucks.
Like a Pepsi, like a Walmart, Yeah,
and routinely you find that there's so much freight in the United States. I mean, it's last time I checked, it was 850 million movements of freight. It's a giant amount and so nobody can move all their own freight. And I think most don't want to, because the manufacturer, it's just a cost, right? It's a cost to deliver the product for them, so it's not a profit center. And if someone else could do it more efficiently, you would use them in a heartbeat. But you still want some control, and that's what the pandemic taught a lot of these shippers, which is I want more control. So this is why you see some of the decisions being made now on, well, I'm going to downplay this part of the market and upplay this part of the market. It always comes back to price, but it also comes back to control and visibility. So a lot of the customers that we see that we have in the marketplace are on both sides of it. They have a brokerage, or they're a shipper, and they use a lot of brokerages, and they use carriers as well. So you kind of see both sides of the market, but it's definitely evolving. What I like to get kind of do this picture where I kind of say freight's always is doing this right now. It's all coming to one just freight marketplace where it will no longer be spot and contract. It'll just be one marketplace because all the providers are the same group.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm curious about. Yeah. You had a great comment about the asset-based, the dual accounts. Back when I was at U.S. Express, we had analysts that would try that, but we didn't have the power-only systems in place by the time I left in like 18, 19.
Right.
Nowadays, a lot of these same large carriers have a dedicated power-only. Is that something you're seeing as well in terms of the nature of the postings are changing in spot where they want to capture you on this power-only network, whether it's an Amazon, Schneider, U.S.?
Right. Well, certainly the Amazon effect everywhere has been creating a need. So you were talking about power only.
Yeah.
What's created this bigger need for power only? Well, the Amazon effect has. And so the rule of thumb is that because of Amazon and our desire as consumers to get it today, if I got to have it today or at least by tomorrow. If it's more than one day, it's too long, right?
Yeah.
You've got to have warehousing close to the people. And so the Amazon effect has created a need for 4 times more warehouses. Well, those aren't the way in which those warehouses operate. Is it's a power only. The trailer needs to be at the dock door. They're going to load it at a certain pattern. Then it needs to be picked up at a certain pattern by just a power only to be able to be delivered. So that part of the market is actually growing dramatically. I was just at a conference down in Miami, and 3 of the largest carriers in America were talking about their shift from, because the rates were depressed on the contract side on one-way long-haul freight, they were shifting more to the brokerage side of the marketplace. They were going to grow their brokerages, and they were doing more power only because it has more flexibility on it. And so when you see that at Truck Stop, we've seen a significant increase in power only postings on the board, and truckers love it because a leased owner operator that may not own their own trailer but owns their truck comes over and they go, wow, I can still run my operations. I can have my own independent business, but I don't have to buy a trailer right away. So it's definitely a growing part of the market.
And it's like a lower barrier of entry.
Oh, 100%.
I just buy the rig. I don't even need to buy the $15,000, $30,000 trailer now because I can go on the app. I can use a Schneider, a Hunt, an Amazon Relay, and it gives me that opportunity. Do you think, when you're talking about the future, part of me wonders, will truckload eventually look kind of like an intermodal where you see like somebody owns the containers like a Hunt or a Hub, and then the carriers are just picking them up and moving them around?
I think that might be a long way off. Here's why I say that. If you think about the intermodal market, it's a small marketplace that operates in that. And it's a small amount of the freight. The long haul, the full truckload long haul freight is a dominant. It's 80% of 75 to 80% of the marketplace.
Yeah.
But when you look at those players, the reason I say this, it's just a law of mathematics and numbers. When you look at the number of real active participants inside the LTL marketplace, I think there's 10 or 11 of them. Ever since the yellow exit, maybe there's just now 10. There's more other players, but those 10 own 90% of the share. You move into full truckload, and it's hundreds of thousands of carriers, and nobody has a dominant share. So there's nobody that can dominate it in anytime soon because of competition. and because of the free market. So I don't see that changing anytime soon. Now, certainly there's going to be some changes, like you talked about power only.
Yeah.
I think you'll see some changes because of just customer need.
Got a 50-50 question here.
Oh, bring it up.
Things that change. I'm gonna harken back.
Yeah.
Trucking is either influenced externally or externally, but regulations and other stuff.
All right. One of my favorite questions.
Here we go. MCA Act of 1980 caused this current situation for the for-hire space.
Right.
You think the next evolution is going to be like this tech outside enabled autonomous changing it, or you think that maybe we're going to have to see regulatory? If we had like a timeline, because you've been in a hot minute, you know some of the trends, you lived through them, yeah. What's some of your thoughts on that?
Well, that's great. Yeah, what's the future hold for this marketplace? I think when you deal in a necessary economy or a necessary provider to an economy, transportation is necessary for our experience in the United States to happen for all of us. For me and my wife and my 5 kids, we got to have a lot of logistics and stuff. I think you look at how it's going to change. First off, I'm going to address you brought up regulations. It's one of my favorite things to talk about because yesterday during the great debate, which was a lot of fun to watch, it was brought up that we can now predict the cycles for transportation, and I'm gonna give the old Lee Corso. Wait just a minute. Hold on, man. I think you can look back on the data and say there was a cycle to it, but when you look at just the last 4. 2003, 2004, 2000, I think 14, 15. Then you had 18, 17, 18, 19. Then you had the pandemic time. The first 3 were 100% created by regulations. Just FMCSA rules coming in, and it pinches the hours of service or it pinches the way capacity can work. And we have a 4 to 5, 6% drop in capacity availability of hours that they can run, and the rates go way up because you got the same number of trucks and the fewer number of hours. It creates a pricing increase, which is really good for the carriers inside that marketplace and the brokerage companies, and it ends up being pretty good for contract too. But so those were all regulations imputed. Now some people look at me and they go, okay, Brent, the pandemic wasn't a regulation. I go, yes, it was. It was a health regulation put on by our government onto us to modify our behavior, and we did because we're good citizens, and it was the right thing to do because we didn't know how to operate in something that had never happened before in all of our lifetimes. So it was a regulation on how we behaved. This is what caused that inverse ratio of goods going from 40% of purchasing of consumers to 60% of consumers, and we ended up with millions of loads in the spot market, in the marketplace, and we had 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, and name your price to be able to move the freight. So regulations have caused every single one of the cycles, and until you can predict when those regulations are going to come, we got the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse right now. It's taken out over 200,000 drivers. Only like 20% are getting their license back. So they're exiting the marketplace. So regulations, so this is my point about this. We can look back and say, absolutely, there's a curve. But we can't look forward and say, well, we know exactly when that's going to happen again because it's a two-year. I believe that was stated. I'd be very cautious about that.
2 minutes left. Got a 2
Man, that was fast.
Oh, time flies when you're having fun. You got me thinking. November 18th, it goes to the state CMV level. Right. So that means that if you pop tot in the clearinghouse, it's now when you redo your license, they catch you.
Right.
Will that be a big event? And then I got a hypothetical to get your thought on real quick. I know we're close on time, but it's really fun.
I'll answer quickly. The answer is yes, that'll be a big event because once you've got to have 100% reporting, they're pretty close to getting all the report because I've looked at the data from the FMCSA. But once it becomes an automatic through the states, you're going to see more exits in the marketplace. And that's on a 3.5, 3.8 million drivers in the market. Yeah.
Final one. Speed limiters. Drivers don't like it. Potential inflationary event. Driver can only go 67 miles per hour instead of 70. That means the driver can use fewer truckloads. That means capacity has technically
dropped. It's going to increase rates dramatically if they do speed limiters. It'll create better profitability for every entity that's not running efficiently, and that's a lot of the owner-operators out there. So in the end, it'll be better in their pocketbook, but if you're running fewer miles, is it? So it's always one of those toss-ups. That's the 50-50, man. But but what a fun time to talk to you, Tom.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Folks, want to find out more? Got to do the plug here. Got a minute left. Tell us about Truck Stop. Where can we find out more?
Well, thank you so much. Well, it's pretty easy. Same place we've been the last almost 28 years is truckstop.com. Just because we love serving the market. We love what FreightWaves is doing in the market and really keeping the information out there on a daily basis. And we love it and read it. But we love serving this marketplace, and it's always exciting to be a part of it.
I'm going to be greedy with 40 seconds left.
for it.
Who won the great debate? Did you watch it?
Well, I personally think that Zach won the great debate, and I think that because it was like this may cause some because we are a competitor with the other person, but I think that when you were in the crowd, felt like Zach won the debate. And I think the people that voted online probably swung it the other way. That's just my guess. I was actually thinking about that this morning, but I feel like Zach won the debate.
FreightWaves elections are fair and secure, sir.
Always fair.
Thank you for your time, Brent. That's a wrap for this episode of Loaded and Rolling. Check it out on demand, Apple, YouTube, Spotify. We'll have this thing up in the week. Amazing stuff.
Yeah, fantastic.
Check out the folks at Truck Stop. Amazing things. We'll join you next week. I won't have as cool of a background.
No, this is
but we're still going to do it live.